Hello and welcome to Understanding Trauma. This training is a collaborative effort between Community Action Partnership, Hunger Free Lancaster County, and the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank.
The contributors of this training are listed on the slide here. My name is Megan Zook, and I will be one of your guides for this short training today.
And my name is Laura Whitaker Escobar, and I will be helping with this training today as well. Let's get started.
In today's training, we will cover the following topics. We will define and explain trauma. We will discuss the brain's response to trauma. We will touch on food pantry stressors and learn about signs of dysregulation. And finally, we're going to discuss the 3 R's and how they relate to trauma and the work we are doing in food pantries.
This is one of the common definitions of trauma that was defined by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Individual trauma results from an event, series of events, or set of circumstances that is experienced by an individual as physically or emotionally harmful or life-threatening, and that has lasting adverse effects on the individual's functioning and mental, physical, social, emotional, or spiritual well-being.
We want to take a moment and focus on childhood trauma. Children's brains are in developing stages for quite some time. During this time, any repetitive stimuli can affect the brain, both good stimuli and bad stimuli. The good can be something like learning an instrument or even just listening to music. The bad can be experiencing a stressful situation and not being supported during that situation by a trusting relationship. It's the bad stimuli that is repetitive and not supported by this trusting relationship that has the potential to be stored as trauma in the brain.
Trauma from childhood can carry into adulthood, and adults can also experience trauma at any time in their adult lives. Trauma comes from an event that is experienced by someone, and this causes the person to have lasting adverse effects. So there are 3 E's to trauma: events, experience, and effects. We will talk more about these 3 E's. Here are some examples of events, the first E, that can cause trauma for individuals. You might be looking at this and find some events that you've experienced or someone you know may have experienced. Maybe you carry trauma with you. It's quite possible, and it is very common. So for that reason, it's not actually necessary to identify an individual's trauma or a trauma within a specific community, but instead to understand that everyone you approach and everyone who approaches you, especially in the food pantry setting, is coming under their own individual context, backgrounds. We've highlighted poverty in this slide. If you watched the Understanding Food Insecurity training by now, you would already know that poverty is one of the factors that goes hand in hand with food insecurity and can have lasting effects on an individual. The second E in the definition of trauma is experience. The note we have here about experience is that some people may experience an event as traumatic and some may not. Everyone is different, and those differences are not important to focus on. Once someone does experience trauma, the third E is effects. The effects of trauma can impact many areas of a person's life, including how they cope with life and relationships, their physiological responses, and more. These effects can be short or long.
We want you to understand what is happening to someone's brain who has experienced a traumatic event. For all humans, all information that we process first starts in the bottom part of the brain, the brainstem. The brainstem is what develops first in babies. It is responsible for fight, flight, or freeze responses. If incoming information, such as sights, sounds, smells, things we feel, is determined safe, information proceeds from this brainstem to other parts of the brain for processing and response if necessary. However, if information seems unsafe, or if the brain thinks that the information is similar to a prior trauma, the information gets stuck in the brainstem and can cause a person to enter the fight, flight, or freeze mode. So children who experience a lot of unsafe or overstimulating events in their childhood can grow into adults who have very sensitive brainstems and may have a hard time with potential threats later in their lives.
At a pantry, there is a lot of information to process all at the same time, and this is especially the case for a person who's first time visiting a food pantry or if they've had negative experiences at other food pantries. Some of those things they might be juggling or processing is listed on the slide here. If someone has experienced a traumatic event in the past, they may enter that fight, flight, or freeze mode at the food pantry as well. Again, and especially if it's occurred in other settings similar to a food pantry where they've felt trauma or have been made to feel any certain way. As a volunteer, you may have similar reactions for similar reasons as well.
Not being able to process what is going on around you and being in fight, flight, or freeze mode can lead someone to feel dysregulated. Dysregulation is the inability to respond to a situation with a socially appropriate emotional response. Responses instead can look like anger, fear, anxiety, sadness, inflexibility, or frustration. Again, dysregulation is being stuck in the brainstem, and therefore you are unable to access the emotional and logical parts of the brain.
What should you do if someone seems to be displaying anger, fear, anxiety, sadness, inflexibility, or frustration while at the food pantry? The three R's can help calm someone down so that they can process information beyond their brainstem. They stand for regulate, relate, and reason. So for regulate, help mirror calmness. Help the neighbor mirror calmness. So do not be saying calm down or display agitation. That will actually just elevate it. If you are not regulated, the other person cannot be either. Relate. Put yourself in the person's shoes and find common ground. Listen and don't lecture. And finally, reason. Collaborate with the neighbor to find a resolution that tries to accommodate both viewpoints.
What else can help your pantry become a place that isn't a potential threat for someone? There's 3 additional points on this slide that could really help. The first one is building trusting relationships. The second is offering consistent services and operations. And the third is positive interaction. These things together can help everyone be more calm in food pantry settings, which reduces the chance of causing a stressful and potentially traumatic experience. Thank you for taking this training today. This slide concludes our training on understanding trauma. We will continue to discuss trauma and how to make changes to your pantry in our upcoming sessions.